Today we are discussing why people think 666 is evil, and if it is actually evil, and if there are other symbols that people think are evil, which are actually just divine powers, divine weapons. So we're going to break down the history of it. I'm going to get into some mind-altering shifts that are brought from history, brought from religion, and brought from science that we just need to be aware of right now and understand how to use to empower ourselves so that we can purge evil from this planet, because I don't think anyone's going to disagree about that. So first, let's dive into the history. Why do people believe that 666 is an evil number? Well, for starters, and this is pretty much the main one, in Revelations 13:18 of the Bible, it states that 666 is the number of the beast, and the way it is characterized is of the Antichrist. They say that it's the end of times, it's control over everything, control over the domain of humanity, and this has influenced Christianity and our culture for centuries. And it is a big reason that when we see 666, we think devil, we think evil. But what if that's not the case? And we'll dive into that here. And then furthermore, people have taken this to the next extreme, using it for 999. Because they see it that if you have 666 and you put it up to a mirror, it flips into 999. And so this is seen as also inverted energy, as a dark omen. When ironically, you might think that if you invert it, wouldn't that make it good? Why would you invert evil and it's still evil? However, if you dive into numerology, for starters, 666 symbolizes balance. It symbolizes human potential. 999 represents enlightenment. It represents completion of a cycle. So we have to take a step back and think, what's really going on here? Because you also have one of the greatest inventors of all time, Nikola Tesla, who is famously known for saying, the person who understands the powers of 3, 6, and 9 will become the master of their own universe. And here, with 666, we see the repetition 3 times, 666, and then 9, 3 times, 999. And Nikola Tesla said 3, 6, and 9 were the most powerful numbers in the world. He also dove into vortex mathematics, which has to do with what is called, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but house numbers, but it's essentially the value of a number when you add it together. So if you add 6 plus 6, you get 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. So for 666, the master number, that's what it's called, the master number is 3. And now there's a ton of editing that my editor would have to do if I went deep into this. But what you need to know is that 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9, which means the master number of 6 and 6 is 9. 9 also shares a similar property where 9 plus 9 is 18, plus 9 is 27, 2 plus 7 is 9. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but just the basics of it is that the master number of 666 and 999 are both 9, and 9 is a divine cosmic weapon. Now, what do I mean by that? Understand this. And for my American viewers and for maybe Europe viewers, this might be crazy for people, but you need to understand that a weapon, a baseball bat, a knife, a gun, is neither inherently good nor evil. Terrorists will use weapons to create terror. The police, in a perfect world, will use weapons to protect the innocent. So the gun, the weapon, is neither inherently good nor bad. It is about how you use the weapon. Which comes back to a greater thing. And we're even seeing this being played out in the gun conversation, is that evil is trying to convince us that certain things are inherently evil, that weapons, divine weapons, are inherently evil. They are trying to convince us that guns are inherently evil. But a gun is an inanimate object. A gun can't just walk out and kill anybody. You need someone, you need a user, you need someone to put intent behind the weapon in order for it to be either good or bad, to either be a protector or a destroyer. And this brings us back to the conversation of 666 and 999, is that they are neither inherently good nor evil. They are divine weapons. They are divine numerological weapons that evil is trying to convince everybody that only evil people use that number. It's actually just a number, but how you use it, that determines your karma, and that determines the intent behind it. And money follows the same pattern. If you've seen any of my money podcast, I explained to you how money is just a tool. You could argue it's a weapon. How you use money determines your karma. How you implement it determines your progress in the world, the ripple effect that you create with it. And 666 and 999 aren't the only things that our judgment has become clouded over. And this is to hopefully build a stronger case in point for this, is that we see this with star symbols as well. You can see it with the swastika. Because, and to my editor, we might need to bleep out swastika. I don't know what YouTube's going to think of it, but maybe just like a little doot. Because for years and years and years, the swastika was in Hindu temples. It was all over the entire world as a divine piece of peace and prosperity for all. And then it got hijacked by Nazis, which Nazis we definitely need to bleep. It got hijacked by them and used as a tool to carry out what they wanted to carry out. And now we have the evil, if you will, has made us believe that the swastika is pure evil. But the history of it is just a divine weapon. It's a divine power. The symbolism of it is just a divine, I don't know how else to say it, divine energy. Now, to take this a step further, we can look at stars. So you're probably you're probably aware of the 6-point and 5-point star. So 6-point star would be the one that you see on the Israeli flag. The 5-point star would be the 50 that you see on the American flag. Now, the 6-point star, they are starting to try to create this illusion that it is the star of Baal, who is a demon. And they are trying to create this illusion so that when you see that star, you only think of evil. But in reality, it is just a weapon. It is just a divine energy. Because if you look into the Hindu yantra traditions, you will find that there is Shatkona, which is the combination of 2 upside down triangles. Well, 1 right side up triangle, 1 upside down triangle, symbolizing the divine union between Shiva, which is the upward triangle, and Shakti, the downward triangle. And this is a divine source of creation. And if you go a step further and understand what Tantra is, or sex, you know that Shiva and Shakti energies are the combining of male and female genitalia to create a divine being, to create another human being. And so these are divine energies that are trying to be used by evil to create this shadow over your mind. To think when you see this item, oh, that's evil, when the reality is it's just a divine energy. How you use it is up to you. And furthermore, Shatkona in Sanskrit means 6 corners. And also, the 6 numerology is linked to Shanmukha, which is the 6-faced Kartikeya. And 6-faced Kartikeya is known for divine harmony, divine protection. And even furthermore, going back to what you see in temples, the hexagram, which is the 6-pointed star, is seen everywhere in Buddhist lotus motifs and Hindu temples, again, meaning enlightenment. There's no malice attached to it. And if you're still not convinced on the power of this, let me give you another example. For the longest time, the UK, Britain, they were nothing. And I think it was in like the 13th or 14th century, they went and essentially invaded India. Now, once in India was essentially at the time completely fragmented. It was kind of like what Africa is today. So the Chola dynasty, which is one of the 4 great dynasties of India, gave indigo knowledge to the United Kingdom. And they said, look, in order for you to take over the world, because they wanted to unite India, they felt that a strong India would make the world a better place. And they said to the UK, hey, if you want to colonize, essentially, India, you need to change your flag. Sounds crazy, right? But if you look at the UK flag today, it's blue, red, and white. The entire thing's blue. And then you have red and white lines extending out north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And what this symbolizes is the entire world, because blue is the color of our planet, 70% water, and red and white symbolize humanity, red blood cells and white blood cells. And so with this symbolism, they have been able to create a massive colonization effort. They did it in the United States. They did it in they did it in Australia. They are essentially the ones who took over Palestine for Israel. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the amount of places that they've colonized. And you sit back and you think, how could this tiny country do that? It's because of the symbolism. It's because of the divine energies in their flag. Now, again, I'm not here saying that colonization's great. It's been ugly. It's been brutal. It's been barbaric. Because again, it's not about the innate colors of the flag. It's not about the symbol itself. It's about its being a divine energy and how you use it. And again, we take a step back and we look at America. Now, this brings us into the 5-pointed star, which the United States flag has 50 of, which is an extreme amount of power layered on what color? Blue, covering the world. And then you have red and white stripes standing together as if, I don't know, the blood of humans representing humanity. Because the founders of America knew about this knowledge as well, because they were the elite that came over from the UK, and to make themselves prosperous and powerful, they knew about this knowledge. And so the 5-point star, ready for this, represents grace and protection. And America, we've had this debate for a long time, if America should be the policeman of the world. Now, of course, they have done an absolutely horrific job of doing that. I'm not saying, again, in the slightest that they are doing a good job, but the entire world looks to America to be the police state, right? The bearer of good, the weigher of justice of good and evil, the one to be the protector. And of course, they have completely failed in that regard. But the point that I'm trying to make is that perception, that idea comes from the flag that we wave. And to take this a step further, you can think about America's national bird, the national bird of America, the bald eagle. It was chosen as the Great Seal in 1782 because it was a symbol of strength and freedom. But did you know that it's also shown in Hindu tradition? And where it is seen is that it is seen as a sacred vessel, the vehicle for Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu is like the divine protector. He's the cosmic balancer of energies. The one who, whenever dharma, your spiritual purpose, whenever evil perpetuates the earth, he returns to restore balance. And his vehicle is a bald eagle, which we're going to bring up again in a future episode whenever we talk about how, well, we'll talk about that in a future episode, but we'll be talking about how Krishna was actually not from India. But that's a little segue into a future podcast, maybe the next one. So stay tuned. Make sure you click like, subscribe so that you get notified whenever I drop that podcast. But Garuda, the vehicle of Vishnu, is seen as speed, power, protection against evil, and devouring chaos. Now, of course, again, I want to reiterate that it is not about what America has done with that power, because they've completely abused it. Our government, the people in charge, have 100% abused it. There's no doubt about that. I'm just saying that it gives them the illusion that they are the protectors, the one in control. which inherently gives them power. But it's not about the symbol itself. It's about what you do with the power once you have it, which is the important part. And I'm telling you, you don't have to look too far to realize that America is embodying this energy. But speaking of Mahavishnu and Krishna, one of his divine incarnations, which was Krishna, talks at great length in the Bhagavad Gita about this idea of how you use the energies, how your karma is defined by intent and not by the physical actions, because you have to kill demons, right? That would be logical. But so let's tie this back into what we were talking about earlier with the numerology, because 666 reduces to 18. 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. Now 18 is a central divine number as well, because the Mahabharata, which is an infamous war that happened 5,500 years ago, and we'll talk more in depth about that, was an 18-day war. It had 18 armies, and then in the Bhagavad Gita there were 18 chapters. And so this number, well, specifically the Bhagavad Gita, is about how you restore dharma, how you win over evil. And it's not about cruelty, which goes into this next subsection about the illusion that has been created over us in regards to evil. And it is because of these numbers that we think in this way. Because if we take a step back and we look at someone like Narasimha, who, if you're in the West, you probably have no idea who I'm talking about. But Narasimha, there was a temple I went to and visited whenever I was in India, and Narasimha was another incarnation of Mahavishnu, so a protector. But he's a lion, and he's depicted as having a man across his legs, and he's pulling his graphic sense here, but pulling things out of his stomach that should not be pulled out, killing him, unaliving him for YouTube. And so people say that the way that Narasimha killed these people was brutal. But it was necessary because they were demons. You also see this with Rama, who again was another divine incarnation of Vishnu. And again, this probably isn't the place to go too deep into it. But he killed essentially his uncle, who was evil, like torture, unconsensual sex with women, just brutal stuff he was doing. And so Rama went and killed him. But the way that he's remembered is it being brutal, is it being gross, is it being ugly, is it being terrible. And then you have when Jesus was crucified, when he was brutally murdered, and we see this as a sacrifice, as it being noble. Do you not see how who Jesus was actually a divine incarnation of Mahavishnu as well, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I guess we just said it, so that's out there now. But the point is that, what's the point I'm trying to make here? Oh, that the numbers are the way our minds have been programmed by the aliens, which I talk about in an earlier podcast. Hopefully we can link that up here or link that somewhere. But I talk about mind control and aliens in a past podcast, so check that out. But the way that these aliens have used numbers is to convince us that good is evil and evil is good. And you see it in the way that we worship our king. The way we worship Jesus is him being brutally killed. How does that make sense? Unless our minds are being poisoned and controlled. And so I'm here to kind of just illustrate that this exists. These numbers are not inherently evil nor good. It is about how you use them. It is about how they are perceived and used in life. And you can even see, I'll give you a modern day example of all of this. You can look this up. I believe it was in 2014 where there was a viral video, very viral, that talked about monster energy. Now, if you look at the monster logo, it's 3 sort of like claw mark lines. But what this video did was uncover, or said that that line, I'm trying to find it, the Hebrew Vav, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, Vav. The 3 claw marks was a Hebrew Vav, and the Vav, that line and then down, represents the number 6. So on the can of Monster Energy, you have 666. And then underneath it, it says monster. So you are psychologically being programmed that 666 is the monster's number, the number of the beast. And so it creates this illusion of that number is evil, when the reality is it's just evil using that number. Let me say that again, because that is a very important distinction. It is not that the number is evil. It is that evil is using that number. There's nothing evil about a gun. It is about how you use the gun. There's nothing evil about a number. It's about how you use the number. And this is where I leave you. In the intersection of not being sure and deciding for yourself. Go and test. I have given you ample evidence. Go do your own research. Do not use this YouTube video, this podcast, this transmission as your only source of knowledge. Go find it. If you have questions, please comment them below, because I will be more than happy to talk to you about any of these things, as I am still learning myself. But with all of that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you check out this next video that you're about to be recommended. And I hope that you ask yourself, what if? What if I started using these cosmic weapons for good and not for evil? Because that is why this is Indigo Education. My guru has given me this knowledge, and I pass that knowledge on to you, so that we can restore Dharma, so that we can drive out the demons from this planet. And there's a lot of them. So with that being said, if you feel that you are unable to leave a comment in the 3rd dimension, then we'll have to talk about it whenever I see you in the 6th dimension.